I could have knocked him out at the start. But as we saw, I didn't want to put him down early. You all know I was handcuffed. I don't want to say anything that I will be regretting in the future. But all I can say now is the first 20 seconds was enough for me to end Jake Paul.
Win, and guess what? Jake Paul is right again, and this decision will prove to be positive for him.
Yeah.
But that said, he's got a broken jaw.
Done so much for me, and I just am happy and grateful, and just all the life memories that are created through these fight weeks, and everything that we've done is just...
You've got to make this kid have a reality check. And that's what he actually did. Jake Paul himself said, I was shattered.
This is how it ends, and it's...
This is how it ends. And it's brutal, because Logan Paul just announced Jake Paul is stepping away from boxing after getting his jaw shattered by Anthony Joshua. And before you even understand that sentence, you need to rewind with me, because this isn't retirement. This is fallout. This is damage control. This is a man learning too late that hype doesn't cushion bone. Because one fight didn't just stop his progress, it exposed the ceiling. And the scary part is how calm everyone suddenly sounds. Because when people stop yelling, it means they have already accepted the results. And you should be asking yourself why this feels planned.
That life pans out for you, because if you're unable to see this fight for what it is, you have a level of dark hatred, black energy in your heart.
Logan didn't dance around it, and that's what hit me first, because he flat out said Jake is stepping back after that loss and that broken jaw. And nah, this can't be real, because a year ago the narrative was world domination, and now it's recovery and thought. And listen closely, because words like reflect and step away don't show up unless something went wrong behind the scenes. Something physical or psychological or both. And I keep thinking there's more medical detail we haven't heard yet. Something they're deliberately softening before it leaks.
Take some time off
To do
go
what?
support Utah at the Olympics.
So sick.
Then she's gonna move to Puerto Rico, move her here.
Jake's thank you speech should have sounded noble, but it didn't. It sounded like a goodbye wrapped in positivity, because when fights start listing memories instead of plans, it's a red flag. And everyone praising his resilience feels off, because resilience is what you say when success is no longer part of the conversation. And here's the first real chill down my spine, because people aren't debating when he comes back, they're discussing if he ever should. And that tells you how deep this cut actually goes.
You know, I wasn't being facetious before, but like, you never know the landscape of this, but more likely he's thought this is a good time to bow out, or got a few.
Eddie Hearn stepping in made it darker, because he didn't frame this as emotional or temporary. He framed it as physical reality, broken jaw, accumulated damage, and body talking back. And that phrase should scare you, because when a fighter's own body becomes the loudest voice, the career clock is already screaming, and calling it calculated isn't praise, it's acceptance. It's the industry saying, we've seen this before, and it doesn't reverse. And I swear there's a doctor's report behind this nobody wants public.
Exactly what his tactics would be going into that fight. He was in there just to survive. He wasn't in there to win. He didn't even try to win. He couldn't win. So when you know in your mindset, you know in your mind's eye, I can't win that fight. What do? I've got to survive. How do I survive? I've got to run like a thief.
Then Duke McKenzie tore the mask off completely, and it got uncomfortable fast, because he said Jake went into that fight just to live, not to win. And once that idea hits, you can't unsee it, because a survival mindset is death at the elite level. And when analysts say every movement was about avoiding damage, it reframes the entire fight as a controlled collapse. And here's peak number 2. Because if Jake knew he couldn't win, why did this fight still happen? Who greenlit an escape mission against a nuclear heavyweight?
And he sells fights so well, and he's a big character, and the press conferences, the build-up to fights, and what he delivers in the ring. The guy is a serious talent, and he'll...
That is Spencer. Oliver's praise almost felt cruel in hindsight, because applauding life after watching a man crumble under real pressure is the definition of irony. And this is where the illusion finally snapped for me, because social media fame disappeared the moment real power touched him. And retirement isn't a loss of a star, it's relief. Relief that this experiment didn't end worse. And if that sentence makes you nervous, it should, because everyone knows how close this was to being catastrophic.
We've seen it before, and I'm quite sure the common word's going to be the boy that cried wolf. I think in reality,
Johnny Nelson didn't sugarcoat it, and honestly, he shouldn't have, because calling this embarrassing but inevitable cuts straight through the noise, because online toughness doesn't translate when a real heavyweight unloads on you. And the boy who cried wolf analogy hurts because it fits too neatly. And here's the third paranoia jump, because when multiple veterans use the same language, you start thinking about what they're all privately agreeing on that they won't say outright.
Does that make sense? Like he said this, he said that, and I want this, I want that.
The Fury response poured gasoline on it, because humiliation became the dominant word. And once that sticks, it never washes off, because hospital footage and one-sided beatdowns don't fade from public memory. And when Fury says boxer and name only, it's not trash talk, it's a decision. And that verdict echoes, because boxing doesn't forget who got revealed. And the quiet from Jake's camp right now is louder than any rebuttal they could offer.
Jake fought a very, how do I survive long enough to land a right hand type of fight? And it made it a little difficult for AJ to get his timing. No excuses. AJ didn't look great. I'll be honest. He didn't look great. He didn't look like, an AJ we thought we were going to get, the marauder, the guy that was going to come forward and bang out Jake in one round.
Carl Froch's breakdown was surgical and merciless, because he described a man overwhelmed, confused, and absorbing punishment without answers. And if you think that's harsh, remember millions watched it live, because he didn't fight intelligently, he suffered. And endurance without danger is just prolonged humiliation. And Froch saying this wasn't a fight, but a demonstration is devastating, because demonstrations exist to teach lessons, and Jake became the lesson.
Back. He should have either grabbed on, took a knee, or at least threw a bit more back. He was sitting back with his guard up, taking punches. It looked messy. It looked like he was under attack, and he was hurt.
Dana White's perspective
twisted the knife further, because he framed this as mismatched desire meeting unforgiving reality. And that's where survival becomes the theme again, because taking a barm from AJ isn't character building, it's job ending. And Dana calling it a warning should freeze every crossover fighter in place, because this wasn't entertainment, this was a line crossed. And once crossed, there's no rewind button, just results.
My brother, unfixable.
I don't hate your brother. You guys need to fight guys your same size. When you fought Floyd, you are massive. He did hit you with a fucking bomb. And
Dave Allen's honesty struck hardest for real boxing fans, because he said cleverness couldn't hide the lack of power and defense. And that's the truth. Nobody can spin, because ring IQ without physical answers collapses under elite pressure, and retirement becomes the only logical way, not because of fear, but because of math. Because damage plus mismatch equals trouble, and disaster was already knocking at the door.
My brother, unfixable.
I don't hate your brother. You guys need to fight guys your same size. When you fought Floyd, you are massive. He did hit you with a fucking bomb. And
even when analysts tried to compliment Jake's fitness, it backfired, because being super fit while getting dismantled only shows how wide the gap really is. And Eddie Hearn saying the final punch would have slept most pros reframes everything, because Jake didn't just lose, he absorbed something meant for winners. And absorbing it doesn't make you equal, it makes you exposed. And vulnerability at this level is deadly.
The fight was, it weren't a fight, was it? It was really, really one-sided. Jake Paul, yeah, I've got to give him credit really, because he's super fit. He's pretty clever really. like he'd make a good journeyman.
Mackenzie's final words felt like a sentence, not commentary, because saying Jake actually asked for this by stepping up hits different when you see the injury reports. And the fact he wasn't incapacitated, totally being called miraculous, tells you how close this edge is to tragedy. And that's not drama, that's the truth. And when reality steps in and retirement stops being a choice and starts being a duty.
A couple of rounds to get hold of him, and then he knocked him spark out and broke his jaw. It was a frustrating 2-3 rounds maybe, because Jake was moving so much.
I'm glad Anthony Joshua did that to him, because now he won't be able to talk like he does. For a while, we might have to listen to his...
The broken jaw graphic sealed it, because injuries like that don't just heal, they stay. And lingering damage changes reflexes, confidence, and careers. And boxing doesn't forgive delay. And anyone claiming this is temporary is lying to themselves, because a jaw broken in 2 places isn't a storyline, it's a full stop. And here's the last unease, because no one is asking what fight comes next. They're asking how bad it could have been.
The jaw, it appears, after fighting Anthony Joshua, right? I made this graphic for you guys. You see it. Got his jaw broken in 2 places.
Care of me forever and ever? Little fucked up. But when you take care of me forever and ever? Little fuck.
So don't dress this up as bravery alone or hate alone, because this was exposure wrapped in show. And Jake Paul's boxing story didn't close quietly, it cracked under pressure. And whether you respect his courage or despise the hype, the result is the same, because elite boxing made its point, and the silence now feels strategic, because something tells me we still haven't heard the full medical truth, and when that comes out, this conversation is going to get even darker. The retirement debate itself feels dishonest, because whether Jake ever returns almost doesn't matter, because the illusion of upward trajectory is gone, and boxing is cruel about that, because once you're framed as someone who survived instead of someone who threatened, the matchmaking changes forever, and the audience changes too. And I don't think Jake wants to live in that version of the sport where the ceiling has already been publicly enforced. There's also a cultural reckoning here that people are tiptoeing around, because boxing has always struggled with combining spectacle and legitimacy, and this fight leaned too far towards show and paid for it in blood. And the reaction isn't about Jake personally, it's about fear of precedent, because if this becomes normalized, then the sport risks turning injury into content, and that's a line even the most pessimistic fans aren't comfortable crossing. I don't think Jake is weak, and I don't think he's stupid, but I do think he underestimated how fast reality comes at the elite level. Because you don't get time to change once you're in there with someone who's been living in that danger for decades. And that's the lesson nobody wants to phrase bluntly, because it doesn't flatter ambition. But ambition without boundaries is how careers end early, or worse. In the end, my view is that this moment will age poorly for everyone concerned, not because it happened, but because it was allowed to happen under the guise of competition. And years from now, this won't be known as brave or bold, it'll be remembered as a cautionary clip, the one people mention when someone else starts talking too loudly about skipping steps. And the scariest part is that history says someone will still try it again. My view is simple, and it's uncomfortable because nobody wants to sit with it, but this wasn't just Jake Paul losing a fight. And Joshua marked the unforgiving end of the spectrum, where mistakes don't educate, they erase. And pretending Jake could eventually level up against that kind of power was always fantasy. And fantasy doesn't bleed quietly when it ends. I keep circling back to Logan's confirmation, because that moment felt less like brotherly worry and more like a line drawn for self-preservation. Because once one brother takes that level of punishment, the other has to reassess the entire brand. And stepping away isn't just about healing, it's about control.